Welcome to the Maine Child Nutrition New Meal Pattern Educational Series. Throughout this presentation, we will discuss how to identify and credit meat and meat alternates in recipes. The first step for crediting meat alternates in recipes is to identify the ingredients that are meat alternates. Step 2 is to identify the number of servings that the recipe yields. Step 3 is to determine how the meat alternate credits towards the meat alternate component. In step 4, you divide the total amount of the meat alternate by the number of servings. Then you divide that number by the amount of meat alternate that is equal to 1 ounce equivalent. Now let's walk through an example using just a meat alternate. Let's say we want to determine the creditable amount of meat alternate in this garbanzo bean burger recipe. We first identify any meat alternate in the recipe. In this case, it would be the garbanzo beans, and we see that this recipe uses 33 cups. Next, we identify how many servings that the recipe yields. In this case, it is 50 servings. Then we must determine how this meat alternate credits towards the meat alternate component. In the case of mature beans and legumes, 1/4 of a cup of beans counts as a 1 ounce meat alternate equivalent. So we identified that the recipe calls for 33 cups of beans, and we divide this by 50 servings to get 0.66 cups of beans per serving. Every 1/4 of a cup equals 1 ounce equivalent, so we easily change a fraction to a decimal, and the 1/4 of a cup becomes 0.25 cups. Then we divide the 0.66 cups that are in each serving by 0.25 because we want to know how many 1/4 cup servings or 1 ounce equivalents are in each serving. We end up with 2.64 meat ounce equivalent, which rounds down to 2.5. Let's take a look at another example that uses both meat and meat alternates. Again, we identify the meat and meat alternate in the recipe as the ground beef and the cheese. Then we identify the number of servings as 50 servings. We have to search for the serving size in this recipe and find that within the directions, the recipe gives us a specific pan size and number of slices per pan. Remember that if you change the serving size, you will most likely change the number of servings and how they credit towards the meal pattern components. We then convert pounds into ounces by taking the 5 pounds of ground beef and multiplying by 16 because there are 16 ounces in 1 pound. Then we add the 14 ounces to get a total of 94 ounces of raw ground beef. Next, we determine the yield if using raw meat or meat alternates that credit differently. Since the ground beef in the recipe is raw, we must look up the cooked yield. So using the food buying guide, we find ground beef, and we can see that 1 pound provides us with 0.74 pounds cooked and drained. So we multiply our raw meat in ounces by 0.74 to obtain the cooked amount within the recipe, which is 69.56 cooked ounces of ground beef. Now we will calculate the cheese's contribution to the meat alternate component. Next, we convert the cheese pounds into ounces by multiplying by 16, and cheese counts ounce for ounce and provides 32 ounces in this recipe. Then we add the cheese and ground beef ounces for a total of 101.56 ounces of meat alternate in the whole recipe. Then we divide the total meat alternate of 101.56 ounces by 50 servings to obtain the meat ounce equivalent per serving. Last, we round down the 2.03 ounces to 2, so this recipe provides 2 ounce meat equivalent per serving. All of the necessary links to resources provided in this video are available in the video's description. Please visit our website for more information on Maine child nutrition programs.